Willie Nelson is a country music legend, known for being a rebel and always doing things his own way. But one time, Willie wound up in some serious trouble, and it almost cost him everything he had. Willie owed the IRS a staggering $16 million debt, and how he got into the situation and how he got out of it will leave you speechless. Willie's issues began in 1984 after the IRS examined his tax returns and noticed some deductions that didn't quite add up. There were multiple tax shelter investments that, according to the IRS, were not legitimate deductions. They decided that Willie had broken the law, and they fined him $6 million. That's already a situation you never want to find yourself in. But it got a whole lot worse. IRS also fined Willie $10 million worth of interest as well as underpayment penalties spaced out over the course of 6 years. Still, as scary as that sounds, Willie claimed that he never did anything wrong, and he simply trusted the people who he'd hired to take care of these things for him. Willie claimed he attempted to do everything by the book, and despite his outlaw persona, he never had any intention of breaking the law, especially when everyone knows that the IRS doesn't play around when you owe them money. The tax shelter was the crux of the issue that got Willie in trouble. It turned out to be illegal, but it wasn't Willie's idea. Willie's former accounting firm, Price Waterhouse, was behind the deal, and Willie wasn't about to let them get off the hook while he was left holding the bill. Willie decided to sue Price Waterhouse for $45 million in an attempt to pay off his bill and also make sure they would never advise anyone so poorly again. Willie was unable to pay off his debt to the IRS, but that didn't stop them from continuing to tack on more and more fees and penalties. By 1990, Willie's already sizable debt had just about doubled, and it seemed like he was never going to be able to get out from under this mountain of mess. Willie wasn't able to make payments, so they decided to do what any debt collector does when you owe them money: show up at your front door. On November 9th, 1990, the IRS came knocking at Willie's house, and they were there to raid his home and take anything they could, and I do mean anything. They proceeded to seize his property so that they could auction it off and pay back the money he owed the government. But Willie knew they were coming and wisely decided that there was one item they wouldn't be able to take, because Willie made sure it was where they couldn't find it. Willie realized that a raid was imminent, so he hid his most valuable item where the IRS couldn't snatch it up from his house. It wasn't a box of jewelry or gold coins. Despite being a superstar, Willie is a simple man. His most precious item is his guitar Trigger. Willie sent Trigger off to his daughter Lena's house in Hawaii. He had been playing Trigger, his custom 1969 Martin N20 nylon string acoustic guitar, on stage and in the studio since 1969. And a few $1 million worth of tax debt wasn't about to end that relationship. Willie knew that no matter what happened, as long as he had Trigger in his life, everything would be okay, even if it meant losing everything else he ever owned to the IRS. Willie lost more than just what was lying around his house, though. He also lost properties and investments. The government seized his Dripping Springs Ranch, Peter Nell's Country Club, and recording studio, as well as 24 additional properties spread across 4 states. You can always buy more land, but some of the items the IRS seized were truly irreplaceable items of music memorabilia. They took Willie's priceless instruments, his recording masters, and countless other pieces from his incredible career. But lucky for Willie, this isn't where the story ended. Willie has a lot of friends and fans, and they came to his rescue to bail him out of the dark hole he was in. They decided to host a fundraiser in an attempt to repurchase all the things taken from him, including the home he lived in until the government showed up at his door. All of the attention surrounding Willie's special case, combined with the outpouring of love for the artist, caused the IRS to rethink his case. They had a last-minute change of heart with some of the items, realizing that no amount of money was worth the kind of anger they would get for wronging a legend like Willie. Although, to be honest, I'm not sure the IRS had too many fans before this incident anyway. Either way, the IRS allowed Willie to hold on to some of his most valued possessions, including a selection of instruments, gold and platinum records, posters, and other items with no major cash value. Taking something they couldn't even sell felt like adding needless insult to injury. The IRS allowed these items to be purchased back for just $7,000 at the Willie Nelson's Friends Showcase. Sadly, none of the other auctions made a sizable dent in Willie's bill to the IRS, and by this point, with an additional compounded interest, he owed almost $32 million. Willie stopped doing shows because he was scared the IRS would show up and collect the money he earned immediately after he left the stage. But through it all, he kept his signature sense of humor about the situation. Willie shared in his autobiography that he parked his tour bus outside the IRS's office while he was questioned by agents for 2 days. When they would break for lunch, Willie would go outside and sign autographs for all the fans who gathered around his bus that was difficult to miss. Even some of the secretaries and clerks for the IRS would rush outside to get autographs from the star. When those meetings concluded in February 1993, Willie and the IRS decided to settle the debt for $9 million. 3 of those millions of dollars had already been paid off, and Willie figured out a unique way to come up with the fund. He figured he could release an album of music and then use the earnings from the album sale to pay off his debt. He put together a 2-disc compilation of acoustic songs, intentionally without a band to keep the production costs as low as possible. The collection was called the IRS Tapes, Who'll Buy My Memories. Willie released it in 1992, and it was a reflection of the somber mood he had at the time. The album had songs like Remember the Good Times and What You Can Do to Me Now. Those titles really say it all. The album was sold for $19.95 upon release and was sold through a televised infomercial. But one big mistake prevented Willie from making the money he had so desperately needed. Willie wore a t-shirt in the commercial with a phone number where you could purchase the album, but his shirt had the wrong number printed on it. That's one major mistake. Willie had to sell 4 million copies in order to pay back his debts, but unfortunately, that didn't happen. Luckily enough for Willie, things still worked out for him. He was finally able to settle his lawsuit with Price Waterhouse, the company that got him into the mess in the first place. He was able to pay off the IRS and finally close this horrifying chapter. And thanks to the friends and fans who showed up for him, he still had most of his property and prized possessions. Willie has been able to laugh about his experience since then. He even made a Super Bowl commercial a decade later for the tax preparation company H&R Block. The 2003 ad poked fun at Willie's headaches and featured him doing just about anything to pay back the money he owed. It's good that he's able to laugh about it now. And even better that he was actually able to monetize the event by getting H&R Block to pay him paying for the ad. Willie reflected on the whole ordeal and said that it wasn't nearly as tough as it could have been, both emotionally and mentally, and he's glad the government didn't garnish his wages at the box office for his shows. Fortunately, Willie's been debt-free since then, and he's continued to do what he does best, making music and performing for fans around the world. And he's still got Trigger with him when he hits the stage. But anyway, what do you guys think about all this? Was this whole thing really Willie's fault? Should the IRS have taken his items in the first place? What's your favorite Willie Nelson song? Let me know in the comments below.